He would dismiss the taxicab at one of the hotels bordering on Hampstead Heath, for they were the resort of hundreds of visitors on summer nights, and his actions would thus easily escape notice. From the hotel he would walk across to Riversbrook, but the return journey would be made in a somewhat different way. If Holymead left Riversbrook in a state of excitement, he would walk a long way without being conscious of the exertion. He would want to be alone with his own thoughts. Gradually he would cool down, and becoming conscious of his surroundings, would make his way home. Again he would use the Tube, for it would be more difficult for his movements to be traced if he mixed with the crowd of travellers than if he took a cab to his home. It was impossible to say what station he got in at, for that would depend on how far he walked before he cooled down, but he would be sure to get out at Hyde Park Corner, because that was the station nearest to his house. Allowing for a temperamental reaction, during a train journey of about 20 minutes, he would feel depressed and weary, and would probably take a taxicab outside Hyde Park Station to his home. That was a thing he would often be in the habit of doing when returning late at night from the theatre or elsewhere, and therefore could be easily explained by him if the police happened to make inquiries as to his movements. As Crewe anticipated, he had no difficulty in finding the driver of the taxicab in which Holymead had driven home on the night of Wednesday last. The K.C. frequently used cabs, and he was well known to all the drivers on the rank. Crewe got into the cab he had used, and ordered the man to drive him to his office, and there invited him upstairs. He adopted this course because he knew that the driver, who gave his name as Taylor, would be more likely to talk freely in an office where he could not be overheard than he would do on the cab rank with his fellow drivers crowding him, or in a hotel parlour where other people were present. "Tell me exactly what happened when you drove Mr. Holymead home on Wednesday night," said Crewe. "Did you notice anything strange about him, or was his manner much the same as on other occasions that he used your cab?" "Well, I don't see whether I should tell you whether he was or whether he wasn't," replied the taxicab driver, who was as surly as most of his class. "What is it to do with you, anyway? He's a regular customer of mine on the rank, and he's not one of your tuppenny tipsters either. He's a gentleman, and if he got to know that I had been telling tales about him, it would not do me any good." "It would not," replied Crewe, with cordial acquiescence. "Therefore, Taylor, I give you my word of honour not to mention anything you tell me. Furthermore, I'll see that you don't lose by it now or at any other time. I cannot say more than that, but that's a great deal more than the police would say. Now, would you sooner tell me or tell the police? Here's a sovereign to start with, and if you have an interesting story to tell, you'll have another one before you leave." The appeal of money, and the conviction that the police would use less considerate methods if Crewe passed him over to them, abolished Taylor's scruples about discussing a fare, and it was in a much less surly tone that he responded. "I didn't notice anything strange about him when he called me off the rank, but I did afterwards. First of all, I didn't drive him home. That is, I did drive him home, but he didn't go inside. When I drew up outside his house in Prince's Gate, I looked around expecting to see him get out. As he didn't move, I got down and opened the door. 'Aren't you getting out here, sir?' I said in a soft voice. 'No,' he said. 'Drive on.' 'This is your house, sir,' I ventured to say. 'I'm not going in,' he replied. 'Drive on.' I was surprised. I thought he was the worse for drink, and I'd never seen him that way before. But some gentlemen are so obstinate in liquor that you can't get them to do anything except the opposite of what you ask them. I thought I'd try and coax him. "Better go inside, sir," I said. "You'll be better off in bed." "Do you think I'm drunk?" he said sharply. "You could have knocked me down with a feather." He was as sober as a judge, all in a moment. "No, sir, I didn't," I said. "I wouldn't take the liberty," I said. "Then get back on your seat and drive me to the Hyde Park Hotel. No, I think I'll go to Verney's. But don't go there direct. Drive me round the park first. I feel I want a breath of cool air." "Go on," said Crewe, in a tone which indicated approval of Taylor's method of telling his story. "Well, I turned the cab round and drove through the park. But I was puzzled about him and looked back at him once or twice, pretending that I was looking to see if a cab or car was coming up behind. And as we passed over the Serpentine Bridge, I saw him throw something out of the window." "A glove?" suggested Crewe quickly. The driver looked at him in profound admiration. "Well, if you don't beat all the detectives I've ever heard of." "He tried to throw it in the water," continued Crewe, as if explaining the matter to himself rather than to his visitor. "Did you get it?" "Hold on a bit," said Taylor, who had his own ideas of how to give value for the extra sovereign he hoped to obtain. "I couldn't see what it was he had thrown away, and of course I couldn't pull up to find out. I drove on, but I kept my eye on him, though I had my back to him. As we were driving back along the Broad Walk, I had another look at him, and bless me if he wasn't crying like a child. He had his hands up to his face, and his head was shaking as if he was sobbing. I said to myself, 'He's barmy, he's gone off his rocker.' I thought to myself I ought to drive him to the police station, but I reckoned it was none of my business after all, so I'll take him to Verney's and be done with it. So I drove to Verney's. He got out and paid me, but I couldn't see that he had been crying, and he looked much as usual so far as I could see. I thought to myself that perhaps after all he'd only had a queer turn. However, I said to myself I'd drive back to the bridge and see what he'd thrown out of the window. It was a glove, sure enough. It had fallen just below the railing. I looked about for the other one, but I couldn't find it, so I suppose it must have fallen into the water." "No, it didn't," said Crewe. "I have it here." He opened a drawer in his desk and produced the glove. "It was a right-hand glove you found. Just look at this one and see if it corresponds to the one you picked up." Taylor looked at the glove. "They're as like as two peas," he said. "What did you do with the one you found?" inquired Crewe. "I hope you didn't throw it away." "I'm not a fool," retorted Taylor. "I've had odd gloves left in my cab before. I kept this one thinking that sooner or later somebody might leave another like it, and then I'd have a pair for nothing." "Well, I'll buy it from you," said Crewe. "Have you anything more to tell me?" "I went back to the rank, and one of the chaps was curious that I'd been so long away, for he knew that Mr. Holymead's place isn't more than 10 minutes' drive from the station. But he got nothing out of me. I know how to keep my mouth shut. You're the first man I've told what happened, and I hope you won't give me away." "I've already promised you that," said Crewe, flipping another sovereign from his sovereign case and handing it to Taylor. "And I'll give you 5 shillings for the glove." Taylor looked at him darkly. 5 shillings isn't much for a glove like that," he said insolently. "What about my loss of time going home for it? I suppose you'll pay the taxi fare for the run down from Hyde Park." "No, I won't," said Crewe cheerfully. "Then I don't see why I should bring it for a paltry 5 shillings," said Taylor. "If you want the glove you'll have to pay for it." "But I don't want the glove," said Crewe, who disliked being made the victim of extortion. "What made you think so? I'll sell you this one for 5 shillings.